It's the start of a new week, and with it comes a fresh new Monster Monday, the best way to start your week. While I have dipped my toes in Monster Hunter Wilds and started looking at its creatures, for this one, we're slogging through the swamps of Horizon Zero Dawn to bring you a shiny mechanical menace, as we continue our March of the Machines. This time we're taking a look at the techno terrapin, the Shellsnapper. If you could find it in your hearts to leave a like and maybe subscribe to this channel, I sure would appreciate it. But enough about that. Let's talk turtles.
I like turtles.
This is another collaboration done with Cameron McLoud, featuring a machine from the series' sequel game. The Shellsnapper is a massive snapping turtle in machine form that was specifically designed for combat, to lay siege and scatter human forces. This is a fantastic design to me. I love turtles and am particularly fond of snapping turtles. I've actually come across a few snapping turtles on my delivery route, including a baby one that was like smaller than my thumb. It was very cute. When it comes to the mechanics of the Shellsnapper, it borrows from Cam's design with a few of my own spins on it. I stuck with Cam's level of 15 as well as my regular usage of construct, robot, and tech traits when it comes to making the machines of the Horizon series. However, I did make my Shellsnapper larger, building it as a gargantuan construct rather than simply huge. And this actually plays into its design, which you'll see as we get into it. As I just established, the Shellsnapper is an oversized creature, and it regularly brings its bulk to bear with terrifying force. This is established through its extreme strength, allowing the Shellsnapper to devastate enemies that don't keep their distance, though that also has its own dangers. For a turtle, we're going to lean into a high constitution, focusing more on its withstanding assaults rather than evading them. As a combat-capable construct, it has a moderate wisdom, using senses to pick out prey that dares to disturb it. Then, rounding out its positive ability scores, it has a low dexterity. Despite the creature it's based off of, the Shellsnapper is surprisingly swift, which is why it uses this still positive value. It can spring on prey with a fearsome fleetness, which is further aided by its high perception score, which should hopefully help it act first. It sticks with a dark vision common among the machines, but given its nature of digging itself into the earth, I also wanted it to have tremor sense. Now, similar to the Spike Striker, I wanted to demonstrate the lumbering nature of the Shellsnapper with a lack of the acrobatic skill. Instead, it has a high athletics bonus, based pretty solely on its strength, since it doesn't intrinsically use it in its kit, and then a low stealth bonus. It is a surprisingly capable ambusher that likes to dig into the ground before springing out on trespassing foes. The design of the Snapper's defenses follows its ability scores, which starts with a low armor class. It's rare that I use a value like this here, but in this case it happens to fit the creature. While this is a considerable vulnerability of the Shellsnapper, it does have hit points between high and moderate. And this is based on its weaknesses and resistances as well, and the Snapper's got quite a few of them. It has some higher weaknesses to acid and fire, the latter of which is admittedly much more common, but it has a solid resistance to cold damage and then a lower blanket resistance to physical damage, based on its shell. The Shellsnapper is also outfitted with components, which use a high armor class since its baseline AC is low. The Snapper only has a few components, though its shell latches come in a set of 4, and each need to be disabled to target its kinetic dynamo. Taking these out does cripple a lot of the Shellsnapper's defenses, while knocking out its chill water canisters puts a damper on its offenses. That leaves us with the Snapper's saving throws, and we start off with an extreme fortitude, inspired and based upon its high constitution. Whenever I use an extreme value, I usually go one of two ways: a pair of low saves, or one moderate and then one terrible save. I went for the former here, equipping our towering, terrifying Toidle with a low reflex and will. The Shellsnapper strikes are pretty basic. It has a claw strike with a moderate attack bonus that only has reach in its traits, but deals moderate damage. The Shellsnapper tends to hit hard and heavy, but isn't particularly accurate, and this is further exemplified by the low attack bonus on its jaws, which deal high damage. This leads to the Shellsnapper being a bit more of a brute when it comes to looking at its design roadmap, but I like to think that the Snapper is actually a bit more varied than that, and I think that does become a bit more apparent when we take a look at its abilities. When it comes to discussing abilities, I want to start with the Snapper's Crush. This is its big 3-action ability that features a stride, and is where its size comes into play, and why I went for Gargantuan over Huge. Creatures can move through these spaces of others that have 2 size differences than them. So example, a medium creature can move through a gargantuan creature's space, or vice versa. This specifically means that the Snapper can move through the spaces of most player characters, and with the Crush effect, uniquely end its movement in their spaces as well. This is based on the Snapper's body slam from the game, and it does just that to the creatures it lands atop of, forcing them to make a moderate DC Fortitude save to avoid unlimited use area damage and becoming pinned beneath it, represented by the grabbed condition. The fact that this inflicts grabbed is one of the reasons that I went for a Fortitude save on this effect, as grapple checks are made against the target's Fortitude DC. The other reason is because I wanted some more variety when it came to saving throws that this creature forces. The opposite of this charge into battle is the Shellsnapper's Dig In, where it partially burrows itself into the ground at the cost of immobilizing it. This gives it a small bonus to AC through the circumstance bonus from the cover that this grants, which I downgraded a touch after the monster mash. It was originally that simply digging in gave it standard cover, and digging into difficult terrain gave it greater cover, and we decided that that was a bit too much even with the Snapper's low armor class. Looking at more offensive options, the Shellsnapper is mostly associated with the cold when it comes to elements. We can see this through 2 of its abilities. The first of these is Frostbite, an ability that enhances the Shellsnapper's draw strike and is based on its lunge sort of attack where it extends its neck to snap at a foe. This increases the reach of the Snapper's jaws by 10 feet, and adds an average of 9 cold damage to the strike's damage, getting it up to extreme. It also gives an effect on a crit as the chill sinks into the skin, which might be hard given its low attack bonus, but allows for the use of a more potent effect. The other option that makes use of the Snapper's chill canisters is its Freeze Blaster. I was debating on how to design this because, in game, the Shellsnapper tends to fire these in sets of 3, and leaves behind lines of ice spikes along the ground. So there was a potential of making this as a line effect, a cone effect, or possibly even a simple strike. I settled on a 4th option that I didn't list there, a burst, based on the Boreal Ball blasting apart on impact. This deals unlimited use area damage at a high DC, but has the added benefit of leaving the ground covered in ice, briefly making it uneven terrain until it all melts away. Before we can talk about the Snapper's last 2 activated actions, we have to give a brief mention to its kinetic dynamo. This does require a bit more effort from the GM, which isn't something I mind, but is something I try to remain cognizant of for the sake of others. But all this does is it stores damage prevented by the Shellsnapper's physical resistance. Now the Snapper can use that stored damage in one of 2 ways. The easier way is its Activate Force Field reaction. Whenever a creature damages a Snapper, it can consume any number of points stored in its kinetic dynamo to grant itself an equal amount of temporary hit points. This enhances its already considerable HP, but it will want to use this sparingly, so that it can save up its stored energy for its Power Blaster. This is the Snapper's Big Blast, a line effect that is also 10 feet wide and deals limited use area damage. However, this uses an extreme DC, and it doesn't have a cooldown. This means that the Shellsnapper can potentially release this round after round, but that requires it to soak up damage with its kinetic dynamo to be able to do so. Like a shell, that covers our supersized cybernetic Snapper. This terrifying techno terrapin towers over targets, taking their tactics in terrific tangles before trouncing the troublesome team with terminal terseness. I had fun building this creature, perhaps the most with the Crush action, but I certainly have some notes on it. I leaned into the tech nature of the Snapper and allowed my players to build Starfinder characters, but the Snapper honestly struggled against them. Non-physical damage is way more common in Starfinder than it is in Pathfinder, which almost allow the players to entirely bypass the kinetic dynamo part of its kit. This makes it better to use in Pathfinder, where it might be the remnants of a lost civilization, the survivor of a crashed alien ship, or some other mystery created by a cutting-edge crafter. We continue our March of the Machines next week, but let me know what you think of this one and what other monsters you'd like to see down in a comment. If you like what you see here and you want to see more, check out the Monster Monday blog, which is linked below along with the Twitter and Discord. Thanks for watching and have a monstrous Monday.